United States President Donald Trump has named two conservative women who he's elevated to federal appeals courts as contenders to fill a Supreme Court vacancy caused by Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. Trump, who now has a chance to nominate a third justice to a lifetime appointment on the court, named Amy Coney Barrett of the Chicago-based 7th Circuit and Barbara Lagoa of the Atlanta-based 11th Circuit as possible nominees. However, not all Republican supporters Republicans have supported this move. Maine's Susan Collins on Saturday said Trump should hold off on making nominations.
I do. I have a short list. I've had a short list for a while. We added a number of people onto the list, the previous list. We have about 45 altogether. I do indeed have a short list.
Tony Barrett. A lot of people think she's the front runner.
Well, she's very highly respected, I can say that. I could see most likely it would be a woman. Yeah, I think I can say that. It would be a woman. I would, if somebody were to ask me now, I would say that a woman would be in first place, yes. The choice of a woman, I would say, would certainly be appropriate. Say it?
Barbara Lagoa.
She's an extraordinary person. I've heard incredible things about her. I don't know her. She's Hispanic and highly respected. Miami, highly respected.
A former U.S. diplomat and associate editor at the Daily Maverick, Brooks Spector, joins me for more on this conversation. Good evening, Brooks. It's a pleasure to have you. Of course, it looks like the U.S. hasn't even had time to honor the life of Bader Ginsburg before moving on to who exactly her replacement might be.
Yes, good evening. I mean, that really is extraordinary. We're already having a fist fight, and the poor woman hasn't even been properly memorialized, let alone buried, and no funeral service yet. I mean, this is quite the thing. The problem is that the election is only about 6 weeks away, and 4 years ago, you may recall, when Barack Obama was president, and Justice Antonin Scalia passed away about 10 months before the election, the Republicans who controlled the Senate has to confirm any appointment to a federal court position. Mitch McConnell, who's the Senate Majority Leader, said, not so fast. We're not going to have any hearings or confirmation vote on any candidate for the Supreme Court within a year of an actual election. Now, within a year is rather longer than 6 weeks. And so Democrats are obviously now starting to say, wait a minute, you had one rule last time, now you want to switch the rule for yourselves this time. Consistency obviously isn't Mitch McConnell's strong suit. But the problem is more interesting even than that, because Susan Collins of Maine, a senator from Maine, and Lisa Murkowski, also a senator from Alaska, they have both now said that this isn't the right way to do this. We should wait till after the election. Now, that would mean that the vote would be 51 to 49 in the Senate, and all the Democrats then have to do is peel off 2 more Republicans who say, wait a minute, slow down, we shouldn't do this just yet. Wait till we have the election and see who the next president is. It's more complicated even than that, because when John McCain died, his successor was appointed rather than elected for the limited period of the term, Martha McSally, and her challenger, Mark Kelly, a former astronaut, appears to be winning the race, which would mean the Democrat-Republican balance would now be 52 to 48 in the Senate, because Kelly, if he wins, would be sworn in immediately after the vote is certified. That would mean the Democrats only need 3 people, Murkowski, Collins, plus 1 more. Now, this becomes even more interesting because we don't know if other Republican senators are just keeping quiet about how they would come along on this to see whether or not the wind will blow one way or the other. And there is even the possibility, if hearings were scheduled, that there might be testimony in a hearing which makes either of those two women federal judges, make either of them a little difficult to confirm. Something in their past, perhaps a judgment that they had rendered that in the light of current circumstances seems particularly suspect. It's very hard to tell when you do these things on a rush job like this. So there is going to be lots of fighting about the nomination, but what it has also done, and it goes back to what you said in your intro, that this now adds yet another issue to the presidential election. You have the pandemic, you have the economic collapse, you have the racial tumult, you have the environmental disaster that's taking place on the West Coast with all those fires. Now you have yet one more thing to make the election even more complicated and less certain. It's not clear which way support will go for Donald Trump on the basis of this particular thing. It could well bring out strong supporters because either of those two women would very likely be supporters of rolling back Obamacare or perhaps lessening women's right to choose, abortion, and even the possibility that if they were on the court, they would be hearing challenges about election voting itself.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because many have said whoever replaces Bader Ginsburg should have the same commitment to upholding the frameworks around the elections than the successor. So what are the indications that in fact would change, and you know, just contextualize that element of the conversation for us. So what does this nomination or election, what bearing does it have on the integrity of any election process or even rules within the U.S.?
Well, it won't bear much on the integrity of the election. The election will go on, the votes will be counted, the mail-in ballots will be counted, but there will be challenges inevitably to one or another of the state totals or to the way in which the count took place in state A or state B. And if a strong Republican-supporting conservative judge is newly appointed to the court, that would give the balance on the court 6 conservative-leaning judges and only 3 progressive or liberal or Democrat-leaning judges, which means it would be very difficult for Democrats to pursue successfully any challenges over the way in which the balloting took place, whether there was voter suppression of one type or another, or ballots had been hidden away and not counted, all the possibilities that make it such a fraught exercise already when we talk about it. So, you know, judges for the Supreme Court, justices aren't picked precisely because of their party affiliation. Justices are supposed to be above that because they're appointed for life in the American system, but they very clearly have an ideological persuasion or leaning that would indicate their choice when questionable issues come to them, and they have to decide on the basis of ultimately how they feel or how they ideologically believe something might be true. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had an enormous, almost an iconic following among a lot of people, especially, but not uniquely, women, because of her long career before she was a judge in gender equality issues. And I mean, if you're a younger woman, you are the beneficiary of many of the things she fought for while she was still a practicing attorney, as well as one very important decision that was made back in 1996, Virginia Military Institute versus the United States. And the replacement, if it comes from Donald Trump's hands, is very clearly not going to be in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's shoes. If by some chance Joe Biden wins the election, and if by some chance further her replacement doesn't get confirmed before Biden becomes president, Joe Biden would probably look for somebody more in keeping with Ruth Bader Ginsburg's ideological persuasions. But of course, all of this is conjecture.
So by all indication then, the Democrats' plan would be to stall this nomination appointment for as long as possible.
Absolutely. And they obviously hope that the longer it's discussed and debated and the longer public opinion begins to say, wait a minute, this isn't right, we should wait till after the election, that becomes more complicated for Republicans to just barrel ahead. Because although the votes might be there, public opinion, if it runs strongly against them, that counts for something too. Because each senator who is up for election or re-election, say, has to face the potential wrath of voters who don't like the way this process is going. And I think the very early polling will indicate that a majority of the people are not comfortable with this kind of very quick rush.